Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony here up on the hill. Sunday, July 27th. We're going to talk about the week in astrology for July 27th to August 2nd. Yes, we are entering August this week. It's a pretty interesting week, a mix of different energies going on. Right now, this weekend, the weekend of the 26th, 27th of July, we have Mars, which this might not be obvious, but if you go back to the lunar eclipse on March 13th, 14th, which was right on my birthday, that was in about 24 degrees Virgo, okay? And so Mars this weekend is hovering over 24 degrees Virgo. A lot of times when it comes to eclipses, when Mars makes a hard aspect, the conjunction, opposition, square, following an eclipse, that eclipse point can get triggered. Okay, so think back to mid-March, okay? This was an eclipse, it was a south node, total lunar eclipse. Okay, this one was visible at night here on the Pacific time zone. Okay, and what it was doing, the energy behind that was this energy of releasing old habits, old worries. Okay, opening ourselves up to new possibilities. Okay, and so this Mars this weekend is triggering that release. It's probably creating situations in our lives that are challenging us to get into worry energy, to get into focusing on details, an over focus on details. Details aren't bad, but an over focus on details so that we could choose differently. So think of your life in those terms this weekend, okay? And over the coming days as well. The trigger to be in that energy of worry and detail orientation and to choose differently from it. So that's what Mars's job is this weekend, okay? And in that takes us into the beginning of the week. That's going to be today, Sunday, through Monday, the 28th. And that is where Venus, at the late degrees of Gemini now, it's going to form a sextile to Chiron and Aries. So it's already forming as we speak here. It's Sunday morning, and it'll peak on Monday morning, and then play itself out through into Tuesday. Okay, and so this sextile, it's a nice, easy opportunity energy. If we take it, Venus has to do, in Gemini, has to do with considering other options, considering other things we could value, other ways to prioritize our values, okay? So it's taking off from this Mars trigger to that lunar eclipse from mid-March that's waking up right now. And it's saying, okay, so, whoa, those details, those worries, well, what about all these possibilities we've been considering here over the last several weeks, okay? Because over the last several weeks, Venus has been in Gemini, and there's been certain points where it's joined with other planets and opportunities to open ourselves up, see other possibilities. So as we're triggered into worry, we can be also opening into possibility. So that's a good thing, okay? And that sextile to Chiron and Aries is reminding us of how far we've come since 2018 when Chiron entered Aries. And we've been challenged, again, I've talked about this week to week, about our own capabilities to be sovereign and not dependent, okay? And so this Venus sextile to Chiron is this opportunity to say, hey, despite those worries that are coming up right now, what are my possibilities? And I am perfectly capable of handling it. It's having confidence in ourselves to just be able to do something different and not have to just, copy our MO, how we've always gone through things, how we've always responded to situations, okay? And then, as we move through midweek on Wednesday, pretty big shift day, Chiron will start the morning by going retrograde in Aries. That evening, Venus will enter Cancer, exit Gemini and enter Cancer. So they're having this conversation here beginning of the week, Sunday, Monday, where we're having this opportunity to expand into other possibilities with confidence that we can do it. And then it's time to kind of reset and review a little bit. So Chiron goes retrograde in Aries. So now we're saying, okay, we've come a long way, since 2018, like I said before. And it's just a chance to really settle in and say, okay, so now that we've come this far, how much further can we go? But before we can, we've got to go back a little bit, okay? And then when Venus enters Cancer, now that sense of possibilities turns into some nostalgia, some sense of, how do I feel about things? Do I still feel attached to any possibilities that I might be leaving behind? Okay, so it's our chance to explore that a little bit, okay? And so that'll be happening, again, that's Wednesday night. And then on Thursday, this is when we're going to have the inferior conjunction between Mercury retrograde and the Sun at 9 degrees Leo. So wherever 9 degrees Leo is in your chart, if it's aspecting any planets, that's going to be an important point. And what the inferior conjunction is, it's the halfway point between Mercury turning retrograde and then turning direct. So conjuncting the Sun, we're halfway through the Mercury retrograde period. So that started on July 17th. It goes to August 11th. So this Thursday, the 31st of July, will be the halfway point. So now we've done some introspection when it comes to our confidence, when it comes to our true expression, okay? And now we're coming to a point of saying, wow, this is how we've sabotaged ourselves. This is how we held ourselves back. And notice how it's happening right after this whole period of being triggered into our worries, into our limitations, etc., but also expanding into more possibilities and our confidence. And so right as we kind of reset that process, now we've come to this point of aha. It's kind of an aha moment in that inferior conjunction of what we've explored in the Mercury retrograde so far. And this one has to do with our true expression, okay? And how we have either allowed it or prevented it, okay? So the second half of the Mercury retrograde will be playing with different ways and ideas of expressing from here forward. And then on Friday, Venus fresh into Cancer, like we said, it enters Cancer on Wednesday evening. Friday, it will square that conjunction between Saturn and Neptune and Aries. So Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, big theme for the year and for next year. Webinar on my YouTube, Christopher Taylor - Sovereign Harmony. If you haven't seen it yet, Saturn, Neptune, conjunct in Aries. Lots of good info there. Anyway, but that'll be triggered with a square from Venus in Cancer, which takes us back to June, when Jupiter entered Cancer on June 9th. And for a couple of weeks in mid-June, Jupiter was making that same square from early Cancer to that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Okay, so those themes come up again. And those themes have, again, to do with this idea of retribalism. So Venus is now in Cancer saying, oh, based on this growth I've had, where I've expanded into other possibilities based on my sovereign capabilities and my confidence in that, okay, that take me beyond my worries, okay? Now, based on that, and based on the sovereignty that I'm developing with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, which is our self-responsibility and bringing our sense, our spirituality down into this life in the physicality. So with that, how are we reconciling those differences, okay? And so we're being challenged again to kind of get triggered by some nostalgia that says, let's go back, let's do it the same way, while also, guarding our responsibility to put our foot down and ground ourselves into the new and do it a new way, okay? Got a visitor here. Anyway, but so that's the point. So bringing us back to June, when Jupiter was creating that awareness for us, where we were saying, hey, this is my old self, and how, the kind of people I would associate with based on my old self. But now that I'm coming into this new sense of sovereignty and my responsibility to honor that, to honor my contract, my soul contract that is coming into play, what or who do I now value? What ways do I value myself? In other words, like ways of making money, for example. So there could be things the end of this week, around Friday into next weekend, where there are certain people that we would normally associate with that we're realizing, wow, that's, I've changed. And where I'm going from here doesn't really match that, even though that would have been someone I would associate with. Same thing with like a job offer, for example. There could be ways of making money that were always ways you did, that always were kind of tried and true. And now we're saying, boy, on paper it sounds right. I mean, it sounds right for my resume, for example. It sounds right for who people think I am, but is it who I really am? Okay, so a lot of challenging energies this week with sifting through the old trying to make its way back, and this new trying to establish. Okay, and we're again halfway through this retrograde of Mercury. Also, what's happening here is that triangle between the outer planets with Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, and in between that we have Neptune and Aries with Saturn anchoring it all in. That triangle is tightening over these coming weeks as we finish the summer here, because Saturn and Neptune are retrograding, so they're getting closer to a sextile to Uranus. closer to that sextile to Pluto, and that even that Pluto-Uranus trine is getting tighter as well. So this future is calling us. Okay, and this is establishing itself in early 2026. That is really what's calling us. This Mercury retrograde, Venus entering Cancer and squaring Saturn, Neptune, and Aries. This Mars triggering the lunar eclipse from back in March. It's all a test to say, hey, we are contracted to go forward. Here's your old stuff. Do you need to go back? Do you need to operate the way you always have? Is that your safety? Maybe there's a new safety we've created. Maybe we're sovereignly capable of being safe in different environments, different circumstances. So that's what this week really has us being challenged with. So we'll leave it at there. If you have any questions, let me know down below, whether you're on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook, doesn't matter. Either way, we can interact. I still have my summer special going on. If you follow me on Facebook, Sovereign Harmony Astrology, in the comments section, every time I post throughout the week, I will put that special there in the comments. So take advantage of that. You can go over your chart, where all this stuff falls in, especially this energy of the summer with the outer planets, etc. And we can do that through Zoom. Otherwise, one more thing. Tomorrow, I will, this week anyway, at some point before the beginning of August, I will release my August monthly astrology report. That is on YouTube, Rumble, okay? Follow me on either one of those, Sovereign Harmony Astrology, YouTube, it's Christopher Taylor - Sovereign Harmony, and we'll go over the month of August coming up. And again, if you want more daily posts, Facebook's probably the best place to go. And whether or not, I will see you next week up on the hill. Until then, take care and enjoy the rest of your July.